The Skeleton Crew 2020 Halloween Special. Welcome to the Skeleton Crew 2020 Halloween Special. Instead of giving you one big show like we've been doing for the past couple years since our basic retirement, this year we have a special. It's 2020. You guys are bored out of your minds. You can't do what you really want to do. Things are limited, so when there's normally limits, when we have one show every October of every year, now we have 8. All right, now we're talking about Waxwork. 1988. This is directed by Anthony Hickox and written by him. And the stars are Zach Galligan as Mark, you know, the guy from the Gremlins. We have Jennifer Bassey as Mrs. Loftmore, Joe Baker as Jenkins, and Deborah Foreman as Sarah, and Michelle Johnson as China. When did she start wrestling, this girl? So stupid.
It's 11:45. Let's go.
Imagine, if you will, an exhibit in fear.
It looks a little spooky, boys. You think we should do this?
A place that appeals to your deepest and darkest fantasies.
Ooh, scary.
Your fascination with ghosts, monsters, and the many unearthly elements of the supernatural.
Welcome to the Waxwork.
Look.
And this is killer.
Enjoy.
Wow, the glasses from Nutty Zombies from Hell.
Lose yourself in it.
Would you like a closer look?
Really?
But whatever you do, don't step over the rope.
Welcome, my dear. We thought you were too tired to join us. All right, I'm hypnotized.
Hey, not so fast.
Relax. Put on a cup of coffee. We'll talk about it.
I want out of here, Sarah. I'm serious.
Getting scared?
Do I get a pretty woman in my illusion? No. No, I get a dork.
It isn't real.
Bravo!
What the hell did you kill him for? He'd have been perfect.
Live, my children. Live.
Hit me. We still need 2 more.
Vestron Pictures welcomes you into a new dimension in terror. Waxwork.
So Dave, this was your pick, Waxwork. What made you pick this movie?
The reason I picked this movie straight up is because this, to me, I've always liked it, and I happened to watch it maybe. I just popped in for the hell of it a few months back, and as I'm watching it, I thought of you. I said, you know what? This seems to me like it would be a movie that would be up Alex's alley. And then I think I messaged you at the time and said, have you ever seen Waxwork? And you said no. And I said, okay. And I just kept it there. And when it came time to do this, I said, now I'm going to have a reason for you to watch it, just because I thought it's a movie that you missed that it seems to me like it would be right on your alley. So we'll find out.
It's funny you say that. You're not the first person to try to get me to watch this.
Really?
There are other people. Yeah, there's other people who, for some reason, said, dude, have you ever seen Waxwork? And I'm like, oh, no. And they're like, oh, man, you should check it out. I think one person bought it for me for my birthday or something, and it's still in the wrapper.
Was it the Blu-ray?
And I don't know why. No, it was a DVD, because this was like 5 years ago.
I assume they think that you'd appreciate it because of, the whole point of it, what it does. Is you being into classic, like Universal horror, that's probably why they think you'd like it.
Right, yeah, the premise here is a wax museum owner uses his horror exhibits to unleash evil on the world. Now, this reminded me of a couple things. Now, Dave, you'll know what I'm talking about here. Now, obviously it's not a direct correlation, but how about the Twilight Zone episode in season 4, is it? When they went to 1 hour long episodes? Isn't there an episode of a couple in a wax museum?
Yeah, there is.
The wax figures come to life and kill people? Like, maybe a guy just had them all in his basement or something like that?
Yes.
And then
Yep, a guy did have them in his basement. He was building them, and yep, you're right. I didn't even think about that Twilight Zone thing either. Wow, that one got by me. But yeah, now that you mentioned it, one more connection. Yeah.
Right. And Dave knows I'm into the Twilight Zone, and even though we don't agree on how many good ones there are.
True.
Yeah, it's called The New Exhibit. It's season 4, episode 13. So definitely check that out. It's a really good episode. It's one of the hour-long Twilight Zones. It was so interesting. Like, the premise here is that the bad guy, basically, he wants you to... by the way, he's the guy from the Ninja Turtles Part 2. He's like the scientist. He's also from Titanic, the bad guy. He's the... what's his name's, like, right-hand man who... like does anything he says.
Oh, you're
who's
right.
Who's that famous guy? Billy Zane. Yeah, Billy Zane's right hand man. Yeah. So he pushes people into the exhibit. Basically, the exhibit, the moment it's capturing comes to life, and you are in that moment now, and then you get killed. That's the goal of these guys. You get killed in it, and then you become a part of it. And then, what was the final thing? Like, at the end, all 18 of the people who they got, who they tricked into falling into it and getting killed in it, they come to life as, what was it?
I think I guess they get unleashed into the world or something like that. But it has to be a certain amount. That part I always kind of drift off a little bit in. I never think about the end game. All I know is it has to do with something bad, and they're going to come out and destroy the world or something like that.
Yeah, sure. They're always going to destroy the world. Because, 18 people could do that. Jamie, what did you think of this movie?
I really like this movie. I have forever. Really, really, really old school listeners of Devour the Podcast will recognize this movie as the one that broke me, because when David, Bo, and I reviewed this, it was pretty early on when Bo joined the show. So it was pretty far back, several years ago. Shout out to anyone who does remember that. I appreciate you. But if you do recall that, then they both came down really hard on this movie, and I just kind of sat back and let them go. And in the end, I kind of lost my shit because I was like, "What is wrong with you?" I've always enjoyed it. I love the nods to classic horror. I love the fact that we go from color to black and white in particular situations. I think that's really fun. And what ended up happening with that is Bo and David actually ended up writing a remake for this film, which I don't think it needs, but apparently I'm in a minority. I've seen a lot of people trash this film around that time when we did the review and then after, and I never understood it. I think it's phenomenal. I really like Deborah Foreman and anyway, and then David Warner I think is cool. So, I don't know. I like it. I've always been a fan.
Yeah, there are some crazy moments in this movie. I will say, like, overall, the movie didn't blow me away. Like, it wasn't amazing. I wouldn't, like, run bragging necessarily about it. It was good, and I feel like it's more of a niche thing that I like, but I have a feeling I could see why the general public might not dig it. You just never really hear anybody talk about this in general anyway, so I could see why people aren't, like, crazy about it. It doesn't really fit the general, what most horror fans like or anything, but, like, there are amazing scenes in this movie, and the gore some of it is great. Like, there's a scene where a werewolf, like, rips a dude's head apart in 2 pieces.
Yeah, you can imagine I really dug that one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I love it. It's because I'm a big werewolf I should say werewolf fan because Lon Chaney Jr. and I'm also into Paul Naschy. Lon Chaney Jr. days, he just kind of ran up to people and just choked them out and stuff. And of course, we weren't at that point in the 40s. So it's cool to and even in the Paul Naschy movies, I don't know if you guys know who he is. It's like Spanish horror.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So those are a little bit more violent. So they're getting there, but this was great. Then you get this dude who's laying on a table and half of his leg is eaten away. So I'm assuming when they were all eating those buckets of blood at the dinner table when they were basically getting the girl into this, was she eating her friend's leg? Is that what we're to assume?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And that made it way better.
Yeah, it's supposed to be her fiance apparently, but of course she didn't know who it was. But in the story, it was.
Oh, fiance. Oh, I must have drifted off at that point with that narrative. Wow, so she was eating her fiance's leg. Wow, that's crazy.
It's dark.
Yeah, it's dark. Just now, how did you guys get that? Because, wax museums, you have to think of Vincent Price. You got to think of the remake of the House of Wax. Now, did you think of it when the dude was cutting the girl's face off to see if it was really wax or not? And you could see, the muscles and stuff underneath?
Oh, yeah. It also makes me think of, Tourist Trap, too, because in that movie, you've got, he's basically turning people into mannequins and, covering their faces with, there's this, really, I think, scary scene where he's covering this chick's face and just describing to her how she'll never see again, she'll never breathe again, and then she won't suffocate, her heart will burst from fear before she suffocates, and I always think about that too whenever I see that part of this movie.
Me too. And you know what? To me, and I've said it many times, but and I'm sure others have too, House of Wax, the remake, seemed more of a remake of Tourist Trap than it did the House of Wax movies, right?
Even down to the brother thing. The one brother being an artist and the other brother. I mean, there were so many similarities that I don't really know why they didn't go that route. I think it would have been more successful if they had done that. Not that it's terrible anyway. I mean, I think it's a fun watch, but I really feel like it ties in much better to Tourist Trap.
I think they thought that it would be a better selling point because at the time they were doing old school movies and House of Wax has this aura, you know what I mean, of old school horror, but Tourist Trap is more of a, you know what I mean, we know what it is, but average Joe
no one else does. Right. It's exactly right.
Right.
A sneaky little move there.
Yeah, House of Wax is a bigger selling name. It just sounds better and bigger and it's more interesting than Tourist Trap. People will be like, well, is that the movie with Lindsay Lohan? I don't think anybody even knows what Tourist Trap is. So that was definitely a good decision. But yeah, I can see what you mean. It's definitely something that's more basic. But it's great to have a nice hybrid. You take a little bit of that Vincent Price movie, take a little bit of Tourist Trap, and then you got House of Wax remake.
Yeah. I think you're right in that it has flown under the radar, which is odd because it has a sequel. So it was successful enough to spawn a sequel, but yet no one talks about it. I don't ever hear anyone talk about this movie.
Yeah, and the premise is the best part of the movie, I think. What a great idea. Maybe people think it wasn't executed properly. Maybe they didn't like the cast. Maybe the gore wasn't enough. They didn't like what went on in the scenes enough when you get into the scene of the wax sculptures and whatever. I don't know, but the premise, I think, even if this was remade, you could definitely do a lot with this. So I think it's a great idea. Now, Dave, what are your thoughts? What are a lot of the notes you have on it since this was your pick? I want to get into your head.
Well, I just always thought it was a fun movie. It's classic 80s, and it has that scene. It has that fun type of scene that, of young people in the 80s. It has all that good cheesiness going on with it. And then, it's paced so well because you get these little things one at a time, a little 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there. And it's a good gimmick, the whole being pushed, going into a Waxwork thing. I just always thought it was overlooked in that it was just a fun movie. And it just, I don't know. And the gore on top. See, the gore was restored. So this was a movie that when I first saw it when I was a kid, it came out on VHS, and it was great and gory and had fun with it, And then what happened was the DVD came out a few years later when DVD started coming around, and I think that hurt it because they cut it. They cut all that gore out of the movie. So for like, I don't know, when did this Blu-ray come out? Like 2018. So I would say for like 18 years, somewhere around there, you couldn't. I held on to the VHS just because of that, but the DVD was censored. So it would be like watching My Bloody Valentine the first time with the uncensored version, and then going back to the cut version. And then it just, I still enjoy it more as a movie. But I mean, when you take all the gore out, it's just, I think that hurt it. And people, it flew under the radar.
I think you're right. That's what happened.
Yeah, I really do. And then it came back out, and Vestron released it in 2018, and I was like, please be the unrated. I remember when the news broke, I'm like, okay, let it be the unrated. And sure enough, I was like, nice. And as soon as you got to that werewolf scene, that was the big test. It's kind of like the test in Hellraiser 2. Hellraiser 2 was also censored for a while, and it came out unrated, and the same thing happened. You could only see it censored for a while. And the big test in that one was in the first 5 minutes when Frank says Jesus wept and they pull him apart. In part 2, they make it much more extravagant. In the unrated version, he gets torn. His whole body gets torn in half. Same thing here with the werewolf scene. That's the first scene, which, when you were talking about before, when that guy gets torn in half from the head down, same thing. That scene was completely cut. So as soon as you see that scene, 15 minutes into the movie, like, boom. That's when you know if it's the rated version or unrated. But, I mean, damn, it had all the gore restored, and it's great. I mean, most of the kills are solid. You got good kills. You got the 80s vibe. It runs at a good time, and, it has different – I mean, they didn't do Night of the Living Dead, they didn't actually say it, but obviously that's what it was, and everything else was – they couldn't come out and say it, but everybody knew what it was. Imagine if they could remake it nowadays and put – all that stuff in there, and they could have Jason and Michael in there if they wanted to, and because the one thing to me, it was kind of like a combination of Jason and Frankenstein combined. That one guy, did you notice it? He was dressed like Jason, but his head was stitched up like Frankenstein. I know, it was weird.
Well, it's weird that you say that because Kane Hodder did stunt work for this movie uncredited, and he was the Frankenstein monster.
Oh,
really?
Wow.
In the shooting script, Jonathan, who's played by Mika Grant, was staring at an exhibit of Jason when Jonathan tells Lincoln that, it looked like the same Jason mask from the movies. Mr. Lincoln asked Jonathan, they made a movie about the Jason killings? So they, it's one of those things where it's almost like, what's that movie?
Behind the Mask?
Yeah, where they try to treat everybody like it's real.
Wow, dude. So they replaced that Phantom of the Opera scene. Because that's what they said in the Phantom of the Opera scene. The guy said, hey, that was in Curse of the Phantom. And he said the same line. He goes, they made a movie about the Phantom of the Opera, and he said many. So they actually...
Yep.
They tried to get the rights, but they couldn't.
Cool if they had left that. I'll bet that's what it was.
It's exactly what it was, actually, yeah.
Wow.
That's neat.
It was all because of legal copyright issues. Like, that is so dumb. Like, it's like, yeah, sure, you want to use my guy? Absolutely. You'll promote him more, and people will say, you know what, I want to go see a Jason movie as soon as they're done with this one. So that was a dumb idea. Sometimes it's not good to be stingy with your properties.
Let them pay a royalty or something,
Sure.
But I just don't see just not letting them use it at all. But...
That's weird. Hey, was that one guy the Invisible Man? That's because I know that you guys are both more familiar. I've only seen it once, but when there's that one Waxwork of the guy that has his face wrapped up like the Invisible Man, but he's taking the hose from the exhaust and he's putting it in that girl's mouth. Did that happen in that movie or no?
No.
Okay, well then it's kind of an odd way to kill. You guys saw what I'm talking about? Isn't it supposed to be like basically the Invisible Man?
I didn't notice.
Oh, really?
I think it could be. Just because he didn't actually do that doesn't, necessarily mean that that's not what they were aiming for. But then a lot of times you'll see when people do nods to things that people know, but they can't actually use them, the actual character, then they'll just kind of pull from various, like you were talking with the Jason and Frankenstein thing. So they could have been pulling from various different things, or like it's an amalgamation character, maybe. I don't know. I know what you're talking about, though, and yes, I agree. Short
definitely
answer.
Look like. Yeah. How about that mummy? You know what? It's something I love about this movie. There was finally a good fucking mummy that killed people gory. Right?
Yes, I love mummies, and there aren't any good ones. Like I like Lot 249 from the Tales from the Dark Side movie. I like that mummy, and he does some nasty shit. But most of the time, mummies are just flat out ignored. And I think that if you use them properly, they are terrifying. Because the whole idea is terrifying. You've got something that's been dead for thousands of years, and it comes at you, and it's all like the ragged bandages hanging. And I think the one from Monster Squad was pretty good too. Was it Monster Squad? Was it Monster Squad?
So.
You're being chased by a mummy, and the bandage gets hooked to the car, and they unravel it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a great mummy in the movie Assignment Terror too. You should look that one up. That thing looks like it's straight out of a coffin or esophagus, whatever you call it.
Sarcophagus.
Oh, esophagus, the thing in your throat, right?
Throat.
There's a mummy in my throat. Yeah.
Awesome.
Why, during the mummy scene, I was thinking to myself, why is everyone in this movie in the process of loading a gun while the monster is already on the attack? Like, didn't this guy just do this with something else? Like, there were two scenes, and maybe it was the Wolfman or something like that. There were two scenes in a row where these things are already here and coming at you, and this guy's loading his gun again. And it's like, is this like a thing? Did you guys notice that it happened twice in a row?
Well, why would they have weapons drawn? I don't get it in the first, because they weren't expecting a mummy the first in the mummy scene. They were just trying to get the whatever the hell. You know what I mean? So are you saying that they shot a few times and then they loaded it again, or
I think so.
Oh, who knows? Maybe old guns work differently and they need to be loaded more. I don't know anything about guns.
But it was this whole thing, like, every time, like, you have a gun, how about loading it before, like, anything goes down? But, and that wasn't the only funny thing, like, okay, this is a good thing and a bad thing. So, the one amazing thing I thought, this scene of the girl getting chained up, and she's about to get whipped and stuff, and just the way they shot that was brilliant. Like, it looked so good because the point of view the camera was from and the way you kept panning back and forth and the guy's dialogue about how much he's going to like this and how much the other guy wanted him to whip her down and called her a whore and all this stuff. It was so good because I really put myself in her situation, and the anticipation was torture in itself. Little did I know what would proceed later on. Now, she seemed to be okay with this and wanted to stay and all this other nonsense. And then, but the other thing that kind of killed my great thought of it was, like, she's getting thrashed within an inch of her life, and then they show her back, and there's no blood, no skin was broken. And then till after they escape from the torture room and they're on their way out, do you see marks on her back? Which I was just like, what in the hell? Who made this?
That's weird because there's no shortage of blood. Even in that scene, remember when the vampire scene she killed 3 or 4 vampires at once?
Oh, it's a bloodbath.
Yeah, and they didn't hold back on the gore. That is a weird decision. You're right.
Right. It's just very weird. But yeah, all the wax figures coming to life. The final battle was kind of meh. I think it could have been a little better. So the last 2 villains are the torture guy and the Ninja Turtle scientist guy, the main guy. So the one guy gets an axe in his back from the chick, and that's the torture guy. That's how he gets killed. And the turtle guy, he gets shot off the balcony, and he lands in a big vat of wax. Who pulled the guy's head off, or hand off? No, head off, right? there was some point in the movie at the end where someone gets their head pulled off.
Didn't the guy in the wheelchair come back at the end and help kill the Ninja Turtles guy? I call him that. I never even saw it. But
You never saw Turtles, eh?
no, but didn't he kill that guy? And then they were about to celebrate or something, and then all of a sudden a werewolf came behind him and ripped his head off. Is that what it was?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I suck, man. I don't know how. Like, I love how in my notes all I said was pull dude's head off, and then I have no idea what I'm talking about because I saw this movie like a week ago.
I just saw it a couple hours ago, and I barely know, so. Same as always.
This movie had the same feel to me, and this is going to be so obscure and random, but as the movie Stay Tuned with John Ritter, because you just keep popping people in different scenarios.
Yeah, I totally see that.
Yeah. So that is something I really liked about it.
I just wanted to say real quick that if anybody out there has not seen this, if you are a fan of anthologies, I think this could be something that you would enjoy because that's actually what it feels like to me. It's not in that it's all the one story, but in a way, the way it's broken up into little vignettes, it does feel like an anthology film. So if people out there do enjoy it, enjoy them, then maybe take a look at this one because you probably like it too.
Oh, look at Dave. His biggest movie is like Creepshow, and he likes this a lot. So that's absolutely true.
That is true. Wow, shit.
Yep.
Did you guys think that one girl looked like Alice from Nightmare on Elm Street movies?
Which one is Alice?
The girl from 4 and 5. The girl that became the new lead. I thought that one girl that gets whipped, I thought it was her. I had to look her up and say, is that Alice? And a lot of people love that girl. Lisa Wilcox, I think is her name.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. I always thought that she
oh, yeah, you're right. It was either, yeah, you're right, because I thought that too, and I was saying to myself, she either looks like Alice or she looks like the girl from Sleepaway Camp 3 who is dating Tony, and she got pulled up the flagpole and dropped on her head.
Right, yep.
That girl, the redhead.
Yep, I know who she is.
I got vibes of her. Yeah.
All right, I thought it was funny when she said, vampires are fiction. Because who talks that way? Fiction.
Or when she says, I do what I want when I want. Dig it or fuck off.
Or fuck off. I love that line. Thank you. I've been saying that for years, like inside of my head. That's like my favorite line from this movie, that she says that. Dig it or fuck off.
I'm going to start saying it out loud.
Do it. If you can find a reason to say it, of course do it. You know? Just maybe at work you say it. Hey, Alex, what are you doing up there?
This is how I work, pal. Dig it or fuck off. I'll sound like Daniel Harris. Fuck off.
Oh, boy. That's all.
Her big line from Hatchet 3.
Yeah. And one more funny thing. Expelled from college. Remember when they come in the fucking room? The guy comes in the class. He goes, oh, I'm real sick, this and that. I got to come in. I got to get this girl. And then she takes her out of class. And in the hallway, she goes, you're not really sick? And he's like, no. She goes, what are you doing? You're going to get us expelled. Can you get expelled from college for skipping a class? Yeah.
I wish I could tell you.
I don't think so. When I went to college, it was kind of like, right? You come and go as you please, no? If you flunk out of
yeah, I did have some classes. It kind of depended on the class. I had some classes that they didn't care if you were there or not, and as long as you passed the class, whatever. But then I had classes where they had an attendance policy, and you could get kicked out of the class. Like they would drop you from the class if you missed too many days. But you're not going to get expelled from college for it.
Nice.
It seemed like they were high school kids, but they were in college because in the beginning they said he's a college boy now. Remember, he was fighting with his mom about getting coffee or caffeine, you know. So, but apparently it was college. But anyway, just some funny observations. Yeah, that's all I got for that.
Caffeine. Well, how do you rate this movie out of 5? How do you rate this one, Jamie?
I'd say this one for me is a 4. I would like for it to be a 5. I think it could be a 5, but there are maybe some slight improvements I would make. Or I think it, especially now knowing that they had originally wanted to do a Jason thing, I just really wish that they could have done that. But I do Really enjoy it the way it is. I like all the nods. I think they made some really clever choices. Like I said, with the black and white thing too, I just think that is so cool as far as like the zombie thing goes, and I appreciate the gore. So yeah, it's a really solid 4 for me.
I also give it 4. It's a fun movie. I always enjoy it. I think it's overlooked, but it's a fun 80s movie. I'm a little kind of like what you said, that the final battle was kind of meh. I'm kind of with you on that. That's where I always check out, but it's only like 13 minutes long, so whatever. It's just fun. It has all that good, fun, cheesy 80s stuff. Kids doing their things together, and and gory, which is always going to be a plus in my book. So it's 4 for me.
Wow. Well, I give this a 3 out of 5. I liked it. Not as into it as you guys are. You guys seen it multiple times. I think I have to get into it more and like relive it more to get that to go higher. Just too unfamiliar at the moment, but I'm glad I did see it and I liked it, and it's definitely something I will throw on once every 5 years and get more and more into it, because you're right, it is my style. I really like the premise. I like the feel. It's definitely 80s cheese. These most of the characters you can get into. I think everybody did a really good job. I like the casting also, and it's just a great premise. I mean, I can't say that enough. It's just a really good idea to like just take these moments that you built this whole little wax scenario up with, and then like live it out. And that's just a great idea, and I really dig that kind of thing. So, yep, 3 out of 5 for me.